Welcome to Beyond Recovery, everybody. It's a nice sunny day here in Edmonton, Canada, and I'm curious, my guest Kaitlynn, first off, how are you today?
I'm great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the show. What is it like down in your neck of the woods there? What has spring brung to you?
I'm outside of Chicago, and
Chicago,
it's
yes.
really trying to be sunny right now. Really trying. It rained a bit this morning, which is good because the rain is definitely making the green pop. So
Yes, I love that when everything just sort of instantaneously, seemingly overnight. Sometimes it was like, I'm pretty sure that tree wasn't like that when I went to bed. It's like, I love this time of year. So that's great. Well, thank you. Yeah, so much for coming on the show. So Chicago. Yeah. And you know what? Let's get it before we get into your origin story. Are you born and raised in Chicago, or what's your history?
Suburbs.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's called Algonquin. It's about 45 minutes northwest is where I grew up. And now I live about 25 minutes from there in a tiny town called Island Lake, which it's a suburb in the middle of a bunch of suburbs that I'm a bit confused at how it's its own town and why it's not just a part of one of the larger suburbs around it.
Right.
But it's nice. We're on a quiet, small lake. So it's a great spot.
It's beautiful. Yeah, I've seen on your Instagram posts quite a fair bit. I'm like, man, that looks like the life for sure, like lake life and so forth. So that's actually where you live. I wasn't sure if that was just like a lake house that you guys had, or so that's your everyday life. That is fantastic. Excellent, excellent.
That's the backyard.
So. Wow, nice, beautiful. Well, yeah, let's get into things here. The reason why you're on here, it's about your story with with your I guess your ex at this point, alcohol, right? So what is your origin story? What was your relationship like with alcohol growing up? What is it like, paint the picture, family, the context, is it run in the family? How early did you start? I'll give you the floor is yours to paint the picture there, please.
Sure. So, it's alcohol's definitely been present in my life, for my whole life. When we were young kids, it was a little less prevalent. Still definitely there for holidays, parties, that kind of thing. As far as everyday use went, not so much. Until I got older, I saw that. In the beginning, it was more vacations, holidays, weekends with friends. That was where I saw my parents using alcohol. My grandparents, one on each side, definitely heavy drinkers. So I was around heavy drinking for most of my life, at least in some capacity. I, aside from a few isolated times, really didn't start drinking until about 18. Started working in the restaurant industry. It's really easy to fall into. I was definitely a shy, from the time I was teeny tiny. I have vague memories, more stories of hiding behind parents' legs when strangers would try to talk to me. I do have one specific memory of a very sweet old lady trying to say hello to me in a grocery store, and I just wouldn't say anything. She's like, "That's okay. Like, don't talk to strangers. That's a good thing." So definitely a shy kid. And my relationship really started with alcohol when I realized that shy, definitely overthinking me would be numbed and quiet when I would start drinking. So there was definitely a comfort in it, as well as I had a very small circle through high school, just a few friends. And when I started drinking, I felt like that world opened up. And I, the fitting in as, 17, 18-year-old girl was definitely something that felt good. And then, that was about the time that I exited high school, went into college, and it felt at the time that it made things easier to come out of my shell, to not be that shy introvert that I now embrace and love. But at the time, it was very helpful in fitting in, being able to talk to people without overthinking every word I said.
Yeah, no, that resonates a lot. I would dare say the majority of folks that have come on here have used it for that reason. There's been, whether it's been just a social lubricant to fit in, or like you say, like it felt at the time that was providing you this is like this magic potion to help you come out of your shell or broaden your social parameters, so to speak. So yeah, it's that, and I can definitely relate to that. I was a shy kid as well. So it's just interesting, isn't it? And that's where, you know, where it's easy to get caught up in it, as far as like you're thinking that it's really a friend of yours, and it's you know, it's working to your benefit. So, and that is fairly late. So 18, what was the restaurant culture like, as far as like, did that expedite it? Because when I think restaurant, you know, I very much think they go hand in hand, both in movies and the fact that I've worked at a restaurant before and seen it firsthand. What was that like for you? And what was that kind of a shock to the system a little bit, seeing that like blending of partying and work so very closely interlinked?
Yeah, absolutely. And you spend so much time with these people at work, and it's this high energy and a lot of stress, and you're just like on this go, go, go. And then it seems that everybody is using alcohol or more. It was mostly alcohol for me, to chill out at the end, because you're so high strung during that shift that it feels like, oh, like now I'm relaxing afterwards. So it just becomes this thing. And then you also get so close with these people, while working, the ins and outs of their lives. You've seen them at, their literal breaking point, crying in the kitchen, and so, you build these relationships with people that feel so authentic. And you feel like you can trust them so much that it's like, okay, well, when we go out and we let loose, and sometimes, certain people get hammered, and then other nights other people get hammered, and that's just like this, it turns into this cycle. I remember being at bars, under 18, and because I was with certain people that work in the restaurant, like they didn't look twice, or not under 18, sorry, under 21, and they didn't look twice at me. I remember being just over 21 and having my friends who were under 21 that they didn't look twice at. So it just becomes this culture of like you bonding so much over work stress. And then at the end, you go to bars. And I worked at a restaurant that was in, it was an outbuilding in a mall. So there were 2 a.m. bars right there. There were 4 a.m. bars down the street. And when you're in your, high teens, young 20s, mostly at the bar age. And then at the same time, I'm going, away to school, and then I'm coming back, and then that's my life at home. So it was just this cycle of like, we party at school, we party at home. Like that was my culture. My routine.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I could see that. What was it like, adding school, like post-secondary into the mix? Because that can also be, for a lot of people, again, the culture, there's like the different like fraternity houses, and then as a sorority houses, like that kind of culture where it's almost like a rite of passage for the like how much you can drink, various, the experimentation with perhaps other substances and such. What was that side of things like? So you have it on the one side, like you say, on the, the restaurant, like your work side. What was your the school side like, as far as with alcohol?
Yeah, pretty similar. Pretty similar. Well, you're dropped in, I look back at school and I'm like, you're dropped in this mini city of people your own age. And, as much as there are people with different interests and that kind of thing, like that was the circle that I fell into. That was the life that I fell into. I started it in my senior year of high school. And then it was like, oh, well, now I'm away from home and I can do, whatever I want, and I'm free. And it wasn't like I was so homesick when I went away to school, and I'm very close with my parents. So I'm having like this weird realization right now as I'm talking, where, even then, like, it was like, okay, well, when I was drinking, I stopped thinking so much about my homesickness at home. And I was able to like meet people and bond with people my own age and make friends. And It was like when we went out, that's when we started making friends outside of the people on our floor and that kind of thing. So I definitely chose to, you can say it either way. This lifestyle of like, alcohol helps me make friends. Alcohol helps me let go of that homesickness.
Yes.
So I think it was a very similar culture to the restaurant industry, where it was like, I'm living with these people, I'm trying to bond with these people, and alcohol is helping me do it. And they're drinking on the weekends, so I'm going to drink on the weekends. And I mean, I definitely had this like thing that like I wasn't a lightweight and I could drink so much and handle it. And totally not true, but I thought it at the time.
Sure.
So that, to like be out at parties and be like, drinking with my friends or drinking with guys at the party, be like, I can drink as much as you, like, those types of things.
Yes. The glory stories, right? The things that are important at the time. I love how you're choosing your words carefully. I really like how you're saying things like, I like felt like at the time, right? And just addressing it as such. It's, and just knowing what you know now, of course, you can't say it. And it's so to look back on it and sort of frame it like that. I really like how you're doing that. A question for you, when you're saying like, it felt like they were authentic at the time. How has the word authentic changed for you over the years? So certainly, and I know what you mean, because initially when you have this like seemingly this heart-to-heart conversation with somebody, but then the next day you see them in the restaurant and it's like there's like this wall that's still up, or like it's almost like it didn't happen, right? What is your take on like authentic from back in the day, the drinking authentic versus what does authentic mean to you now? I know it's a kind of a two-parter.
Well, I will say the restaurant industry, I have one friend that remains from the restaurant industry. Like there's still some people that I talk to as well, but like one girl that was like at my wedding, in my wedding. Aside from that, I really don't like converse. I really don't hang out with anybody else from the restaurant. And as far as college goes, like my two roommates are my best friends, of course. But aside from that, and then there's a few others, but aside from the core group that also saw me as me and not as drunk me, I don't talk to the people that saw me as drunk me, because that, when we go back to authentic, like I look back on that and like, that wasn't me. Like that was the shy introvert homebody that looks at birds and nature and flowers. That's me. The girl who's like, I can drink and party you under the table. Like that was never me. That was this girl trying to be something she wasn't.
Like a persona, like a drinking persona almost, right? Yeah.
Completely different people.
Yeah. Interesting. It's funny to reflect back on that though, right? It's like at the time, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like for me, it was always like, my intention was to get to a spot where I could have these like meaningful conversations with people, but not realizing the way I was going about it was so counterproductive to actually getting there. If you get what I mean, like I really wanted to have a heart-to-heart conversation, be able to be my genuine self, but what I was doing and how I was going about it was just so getting in my own way. Did that feel like kind of the same with you?
100%.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we had this drunken heart-to-heart, like what was that? Right. And it definitely was. It was like, oh, I'm going to get to this place. I'm going to have these conversations. They're going to be real conversations. And sometimes they were. For the most part, though, they weren't. Yeah. And for the most part, once you sit down and start having that conversation with the best of intentions, and then you're sitting there drinking, and then you don't even realize that you're still drinking. And then by the end of it, you're just not even talking about anything besides in circles.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly circular drunk talk for sure. For sure. Yeah, no, interesting stuff. So that is, that's kind of I would say that would be, your coming out party in a sense, like, you're going to school, you're in this new, it's a real chance to like reinvent yourself. Right. And, you're using this, this familiar liquid, familiar to both of us. to get there and using is that, when was there a stage and how gradual was it where you started having some thoughts in your head about, okay, this is starting to get on top of me a bit, or there things are getting out of balance, or I'm getting out of alignment with who I am, or was there even just questions, who am I truly without this? Like what did that look like for you?
Yeah. I think it started earlier than I let it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because there were, even in college, I think I did one 30-day
Oh,
no drinking. I did do one in college. And I remember when I turned 21, I was like, oh, I drank 20 days in a row. Like that was some kind of accomplishment after my 21st birthday.
yeah.
And there's, it was like, and not remembering nights where I would like leave my roommates and go off with someone else. And like that wasn't me. Like I was definitely like the innocent, shy girl. And when I would do things that were not that girl, I would notice I started to be like, whoa, like what am I doing? Did I correct it right away? No. And then after school, I ended up in restaurant management. And, I was 24 years old. So I was younger than a lot of the servers. So I was definitely, I look back on it now and I'm like, yeah, was I good at the restaurant industry? Sure. Was I in the right headspace or mature enough to handle that? That's a question. And that restaurant, it was the same chain, different location, was a very different culture and very much very touchy-feely. And I was very uncomfortable in a lot of the situations that I was in. Yeah. So it was, but at the same time, it was like, well, these people are my friends. These people care about me. These people are here. They're going to protect me. They're this, they're that. They respect me, which is laughable. That restaurant, I don't talk to anybody from.
Doesn't sound like, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. So it's just very interesting to look back on that. That's likely where I started to like really see it. And I would go home and like I was a newer manager, so I would close a lot, which meant getting out at like 1 o'clock in the morning. And I would stop at this gas station that sold late and I would buy beer and I would go home and I would drink, 4 or 5 beers when I got home at 1:30 in the morning. And then, I would stay up till 3 and then I would sleep till noon and then I would get up and I would do it all over again. Yeah. So my whole circadian rhythm was off, and at the time, like I had no idea about any of this. I'm looking back on this as me now.
Yes.
And that is where it started. Like I got a personal trainer. I started eating healthy. Like I definitely knew that I was not me. That was the big place where it started, I would say. And like I left that job, got another job, and I just like bounced from job to job for a while in my 20s. And yeah, and I mean my first restaurant job, like that was like a 9-year job. So for me to be bouncing, I was like, how did I go, from 17 to 26, basically at the same job, and now I'm bouncing. Right. So so that was hard for me to take. And then it was like, then I started doing work on looking back at that restaurant and everything that was messed up about it, and really had to dig into myself, where I started to really rediscover who I was. And then there's a lot of different things that happened, and I started drinking again. And then the big part of the story comes planning my wedding in 2020. Okay. And I was, super excited, and we were going to get married, and we got engaged in December of 2019. So very close to the pandemic happening. Yes, very close. Without knowing that the pandemic was about to happen.
Of course.
So I had already booked a venue. Like we were already talking about it. I knew we had the ring. So we had already booked a venue, and it was very much like we're getting married in September. So I did I had bought a dress, I had gotten myself all ready. So then in March, when, it started to really ramp up, we were pretty optimistic. We were like, well, by September, no way, it can't be that long. And little did we know what was to come. So it was in July that we ended up postponing. And at that point, I was supposed to go to Nashville for my bachelorette party, which, I look back on thankfully, that didn't happen. I ended up going to Lake Geneva in Wisconsin. And we got back, and it was the Tuesday after that we decided that we were going to have to postpone the big celebration. And we were like, we don't know what we're going to do, but we know we're going to have to postpone. And then we ended up coming up with this idea that we were going to do this surprise wedding a week later on what was supposed to be my wedding shower. So we did the surprise wedding, which was great. It was awesome. And then I fell asleep on my parents' kitchen floor at night. I was, these were the excuses I gave the next morning. Was I was exhausted. I've been through a lot. I'm planning a wedding in a pandemic. I deserved, to drink. I deserved to party. It was my wedding day. I can go on and on.
Sure.
So then the next morning there was open champagne. So we of course made mimosas. What else are you going to do with open champagne the next day, right?
Clearly.
Yeah. So then in December, I ended up hospitalized. So that was where I stopped and I said I was going to stop for 6 months. And my being hospitalized was due to, it wasn't really physical, it was mental. And I went voluntarily. And so I was like, okay, I'm obviously in a bad spot. And I decided that I was going to stop drinking for 6 months. And I did. And then, it was 6 months and probably 4 days later that I went out to dinner and had a couple glasses of wine. And I was like, okay, I'm good. I got this. Right. The I got this. I think we've talked about the I got this.
We sure did. Yeah.
Yeah. So I started drinking again, and it was fine. And I was, working it out, had a couple nights where I was like, okay, I was a little too buzzed. And then we had our wedding, and then, super high highs and super low lows in the same few months. And just my emotions were definitely all over the place. And I'm, drinking and grieving, and celebrating and then grieving. And it's, it was, I noticed now, I was on this high, low thing for a very long time. And I was drinking, which was making these highs and lows so much more extreme. And so in January, I was like, okay, I'm going to do dry January, and thought it was going to be a month-long thing. And then on January 15th, I decided that we're going out for a friend's birthday. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to have a few drinks. And it was fine. I got drunk. Yeah. I didn't do anything bad, the do anything bad thing.
Yeah.
And I woke up the next day and I had this big anxiety. I was really sad. And I was, what the heck am I doing? So from that point on, I stopped. And I've just been so big on, getting myself, my authentic self. So this is where I've been getting back to with this whole story. So I've been, doing all the things to feel my feels. And it's much more, it was like this with drinking, and now it's, up and down. And now it's this straight line, with little bumps and valleys in it. But I just don't have those crazy highs and lows anymore. And I'm so much more in control of myself. So that was a really long answer to your question.
It's beautiful. Thanks for sharing. That's amazing. Yeah. And I'm scribbling down notes as I go. So that way we can have some markers to go back to. But first thing I can think of right off the bat, and it's funny, and correct me if your experiences was any different, but initially I was using drinking from my perception to level everything off. We're talking about turning down the mental chatter, so forth. And my actual perception of, and maybe it was at one point, I kind of lost sight of it though, was that the whole idea was that was going to level everything out for me. but then of course, in hindsight, looking back on it, absolutely much more violent. I'm not prone to depression, but the nature of alcohol being a depressant would bring that out in me. And I would get more angry than I really needed to be, or, that righteous anger, like whether you're drinking, like F this, blah, blah, that kind of stuff. So was that the same thing for you? Like where you were under the impression at one point that it was, mellowing you out or keeping things level, or was there always sort of, I guess in hindsight, did you, well, what's your opinion on that?
I definitely did. Cause I would get, and mine wasn't so much anger. There were times where it was anger. Mine was anxiety and sadness. And I am so innately happy. It's ridiculous. And it's so great to know that now. But I would be like, oh, I'm sad. And then this like red wine would call to me. And like, now I look back on that and I'm like, red wine was for me, a bottle of sadness.
Okay.
So it's like just pouring sadness on sadness. So, and I remember saying like with tequila, my family is tequila drinkers. And I remember saying that tequila makes me feel a more intense version of whatever I'm feeling.
Okay. Yeah. I could see
so
that.
Like if I'm happy, I'm extra happy.
Yeah.
But like right there, it tells you that it's not leveling me out.
Right. Yeah, I gotcha.
But I definitely did in the beginning. Like it was like, oh, I have this mental chatter and I'm anxious and I'm probably, showing my anxiousness. So if I just drink to take the edge off, I'll be chill.
Totally. Yeah, no, that's cool. Well, not cool. It's cool that I just want to compare notes on that and kind of see that it's like, in fact, the case. I found that was with smoking cigarettes too. I'm like, because smoking cigarettes is weird because it's like, it's like the catch-all. I'm like, I'm use it to relax. I use it to, fill in the blank. And I found drinking was a lot like that too. And in fact, it's doing like the exact opposite of what you're perceiving it to do. And that's kind of the sneakiness of it. So yeah, looking back to like, what is your, when you have that moment in the middle of January and you had this, it's, not necessarily a relapse because it wasn't like, you had planned for the 30 days, but it wasn't like super firm necessarily either. You hadn't committed, okay, I'm sober now, as you have now. So what was your self-talk, or even when you had specific relapses, what was that like? I want to get this out to as many people as I can as far as the specific subject of relapse, because I find that it can be very challenging for people. It's kind of like the second arrow, and I believe that you and I have talked about this before as well, is like when you get in a car accident and then you get angry at yourself for getting in a car accident. So it's like this secondary thing afterwards. How did you navigate your blips in the radar, your bumps, your relapses, and those types of things? What kind of advice can you give on that?
Yeah, I mean, so after the 6 months, the first time I got like drunk again, that night we were in Michigan up north, and I was crying, and I was like, this is exactly what I didn't want to do again. And I was so upset with myself. And I didn't stop again after that. Like, I was like, I woke up the next morning and I was like, okay, like that's what we don't want to do. So definitely was down on myself then. And that stemmed because in that conversation I got, like, it was before I walked away and like we went to bed. I didn't like cry until we were going to sleep, but in the conversation, I felt my words go, I felt my voice go. And I was so disappointed that like, I let myself get to the point of like not being able to be present, because I so enjoyed being present and being aware. I put up a post that said, it's not merely the presence of alcohol, it's the absence of my presence when drinking alcohol. Ooh, and that is what really like that's, yeah. And the second in January, it was similar. It was the next day and I was, super anxious, felt like garbage. And I was laying in bed and I was like, what the heck am I doing? Like, why am I still doing this? I know that I don't like this feeling. I know that alcohol is not helping me. If anything, it's I definitely is making me more emotional, which, you know, I've had thoughts where I'm like, oh, drinking for other people, where I'm trying to be supportive.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm being the opposite of supportive for these people.
Mm.
I'm making everything worse. When I get emotional. So there was definitely started down that road. With all the work that I've done on myself, I'm able to catch it a lot better than I used to. And I was like, okay, like, what you want to do. It's not even a need to do thing anymore. And that's why for me, this time has been so, in a sense, easy. Hard in different ways. Easy to stop drinking. So easy to stop drinking for me this time.
Nice.
Harder to be around people drinking this time.
Yes, that makes sense. And let's get into that. This is a big part of your current story. It's a big part of your story altogether. And it's the family, the generational drinking patterns, right? It is a big thing for you and your family, as you've mentioned, right? And it's been coming up for you in this stint of your sobriety, right? So how have you been navigating that? And I think there's going to be a lot of people out there that are going to resonate with this, because that's family at the end of the day are family. There's some friends that'll come and go depending. You talked about the restaurant folks that are no longer in your life for very good reasons, right? But at the end of the day, family, you still love them. They're still family. They're heard a phrase a long time ago. It was one of my friend's dad said to me, he's like, family are the only people at the end of the day that truly care about you. I was like, wow, so, having that in mind, how have you been navigating this stint with sobriety with your family, and how have they been receptive to you in this new yet, I guess rediscovered version of Kaitlynn?
Yeah. So, so my family, they, still drink. Definitely in the beginning, like, I felt that all that I saw of them was them drinking. Every time we hung out, there was alcohol, and that to me was exhausting and energy draining. And I had to take, to the point that I was like, right now I'm taking a step away from you guys when you're drinking alcohol. We suffered a family loss in November. And so the drinking to me was just amplifying these emotions of grief for everybody. And there was a guilt from me, like, oh, well, I'm not, definitely a guilt of I'm not drinking with them. There was also an anger, which I'm a big believer that anger is a secondary emotion, which I believe was fear of, are they okay? Or are they using alcohol the way that I did, to numb?
Right.
And I have since, just even in the last month, communicated a lot to them. And I also realized that the way that I was so successful with this for 6 months, and that it was so easy. And like, I was able to be around my family for the most part. And like, yes, I left early, and I will continue to leave early. Because I've noticed for myself, when like eyes get glassy, words get slurred, speech goes, conversations get dull, in my opinion. That's when it's time to leave. I love my family. I adore my family. We've been close my entire life. And it was actually this past Sunday that was the first time that I was around them with any alcohol present. It was Sunday dinner. It wasn't like a party or anything. And I brought my bottle of alcohol-free wine, and it's so different when I have that and I'm like, okay, I have this wine in this wine glass and it's fine. Or, we're having a party on Saturday and I'm like, okay, like, I stocked my beer fridge with non-alcoholic beer. Yeah. And I love like throwing parties. I was, the one that brought the fun cocktails to parties all the time. And I can still make them, like, because for me, like, making them, that's not a trigger. I don't want it. So So I'm very confident now in what I do, like what I do for myself to protect myself and to still feel, the whole point of alcohol was to fit in. And then I started becoming the one who would get sloppy, and then was I really fitting in? So now it's like, okay, I have my alcohol-free beers, I have my alcohol-free wine, I have my wine glass, I have my koozie with my beer in it if we're outside. And I also can contribute to the conversation. And then, especially like when the party is at my own house, I'll come lock myself in bed and go to sleep.
Right.
So it's just finding that balance of,
Yes.
and also like I brought my nephew out to, my dad has a small airplane, and we went out there. It's my husband's sister's son, and we took him out there. And it's like, when I create these situations where there's not drinking, I'm the one who chose to change. And so that's my responsibility, is to change the dynamic. I can, and I will not expect them to create those for me. And I also believe that as I start to change that dynamic, it's going to start to change itself in a sense. And they're going to start, organizing things. I mean, my mom has already been great. Like, let's go for a walk. Let's go get our toes done. Let's, things like that. Let's help it. Or she went grocery shopping with me yesterday for this party. And doing those things. And it's like those authentic, I told my family when I was going through not wanting to be around them drinking, I was like, I want to be around you when when you are your true authentic self. And creating those situations and those times, it makes it a lot easier for me to be around them when they are drinking, because I still feel like I know them. And I still feel like that authentic connection is there.
Beautiful, man. There's so much great stuff in there, so much great advice, and kudos to you for practicing. Right? It is a practice. It's a practice of redefining, really, right? Redefining what the what family means, and what your dynamic that you're bringing to it now with this, like you say, you've acknowledged and you have a responsibility for you being the person that has changed, and now you're bringing that to the situation, and navigating it with these different these different tools and these different advice. So I'm like, I just want to paraphrase some of the things that you mentioned, just for anybody that's listening, that it was resonating with. The ability to leave early, to be the ability to go, to realize, I think we all have that when we've been drinkers, we have that spidey sense that we can kind of tell, that right when the party's starting to kind of get a little bit sloppy. So, like you say, the glassy eyes and the slurred speech starts coming out. You just know, right? It's just like, it's in our bones at this point. You can kind of tell. So that's great advice. I love that. Having the alcohol-free drinks, you can still have fun. You and I have both talked about the, how great the selection has been, even over the last few years, how it's increased for those types of drinks. So to have that, like, as instead of just, I guess I'll drink water, come prepared. You have your wine bottle. You still have the, the thrill of the pour. You still got your wine glass. Great. Another great, tip right there. And you took it some time away. You had the courage to pause, pause from your own family and just go, I just need a little bit of time for myself. And it helps you center yourself, get rerouted, and then you can plunk yourself back in. Having that point of disruption, I imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, was probably crucial for you to be able to go in and redefine this family dynamic with you, the sober version of you back in it.
Yeah, definitely. And there was a really cool moment on Sunday dinner where, like, I walked in with a bottle of wine and I took the wine bottle out of the drawer, and my dad took it out of my hands to open it for me. And it was like, that was really cool. Cause like, my dad and I we're both huge Chicago Bears fans. I get it from him for sure. And like, we had this like beer and football bond for sure. You know, I was his daughter I am his daughter who he introduces as a bigger Bears fan than his sons. And so to be able to be like, that can still happen, like, is really cool.
Very cool. Yeah.
Really cool. Yeah.
And that's got to be a game changer. So yeah, and it's just, you know, it's just a practice. This is an ongoing thing. And, you know, it's you know, that's you know, the family getting familiar with you, and you getting more familiar with, you know, it's some practice, right, of the new dynamic that you guys have. But just the fact that you can still have those moments together just shows. And I love how you're mentioning too, it isn't about, you know, we both know from the Unlifted community, speaking in negations versus affirmations. It's not about I don't want to be around you when you're drinking. It's I choose to be around you when you're your authentic self. So beautiful. Mm-hmm. Excellent advice there. That's great. And you've gotten into some coaching of your own as well. So you and I are both from the Unlifted coaching community, and you've got some great stuff going on. And just to get a little bit off topic, just because I do want you to have an opportunity to mention about what you have going on with your coaching and some of the workshops that you've been doing.
Yeah. So so it's been great. After everything happened in 2020, my brother is a part of the Unlifted community. And he reached out and was like, hey, do you want a Storyboard coach? And I was like, yeah, I don't know what that is, but I'll do anything at this point. So yeah, that's fine. So then he reached out and got me a Storyboard coach. And I started doing that, and then happened to be the creator of Unlifted, co-founder of Unlifted, that I was working with. And when I was getting to the didn't know it when I said yes, and which is good, because I likely would have been a little intimidated at the point that I was in my life. So I did one-on-one. Also, he's not an intimidating person. I just gotta throw that out there. Totally. Feel comfortable in like the first 5 seconds of the phone call. And then we really dove into a lot of stuff, and we really didn't even touch the current things that have happened. We really went into my past more. Went after the flame, as he would say. Yes. So
exactly.
So we went through the one-on-one coaching, and then when I got to the end of that, he said, hey, you're really good at this. Do you want to be a coach? And I was like, okay. And when I started going through the coaching certification, I wasn't doing coaching. I was still in it for, well, this is, more continuation of bettering myself. And I think I got 2 classes into that certification, and I was like, okay, I want to coach. And then I went through the level 2 certification. And then I started to, do free sessions, coach my friends. There were some people from the Unlifted community that reached out to me for people that they knew. And I was doing, like free coaching sessions, just getting used to what coaching is. It's funny though, because even in college, my friends used to be like, why do people tell you their life story? Like, we would be at parties and like people would just tell me their life story. I'm like, I just, I'm a healer. At the true authentic self, I'm a healer. Alcohol blocked that for a little bit. So I went through the certification, started coaching, and then I've gotten to the point now where I've done a workshop, couple workshops on goal setting and affirmations. Definitely, I am a big believer in, you touched on it, speaking in affirmations. If you say we'll use drinking, I can't stop drinking, you're ending it right there. If you say I can learn to live alcohol free, you give yourself so many more possibilities. So that's just a small example, and then you can keep going, and then before you know it, you're saying I am alcohol free, which was very hard for me to say for a while. Or I am sober was very hard for me to say. So
really interesting.
Yeah, it was a transitional period for me. So so now, and then I'm actually going to do a kids camp with breathing and affirmations. I'm going to teach the kids breath work and affirmations.
It's amazing.
And yeah, I got a couple more workshops on the books. So it's been really great. And I definitely believe that the best healers have healed themselves.
Yes.
Done work on themselves. So I want, this work and everything that I've done has been so transformational in my life, and I want to share it. Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? I think it's this human nature. Like it's like that whole hero's journey thing. Like after you've gone through that act 3 where you've learned, it's like the Luke Skywalker after he learns how to use the Force, and it just comes back and he just wants to share it. Right. I think it's this human nature after you've gone through a transformation and you feel that great about yourself. You just want to share it and you want to help others that have had that, maybe they don't have to go through as lengthy of suffering as perhaps you did or whatever it may be. Right. And you can be like, I've been through this. I can help you get to the other side even quicker. So, that's just beautiful. So how important was that side of it? Cause the gentleman we're talking about, shout out Mark England, always says, I think it's something along the lines of like, whatever, when you hear something, you retain 30%. When you write it down, it's 50. When you teach it, it's 80%. So somewhere in there, I imagine out of the self-development that you were doing, it sounded like you said at the very beginning of the level 2 of Enlifted, that you're just like, man, yes, the best way to continue this is to, in fact, become that myself, become that teacher, start sharing that. So how big was that in your, I guess, what stage was that in your sobriety? Was that in this last, whatever it may be,
Or the
whatever,
last 4 months.
4 months? No, because you did that late last year, did you? Yeah. What was the timeline for that, and how did they coexist?
That was January of last year that I started.
Last year. Okay.
Well, okay. So they were both January. So it's
okay.
It's confusing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So January of 2021 was when I started coaching. And it's been, it's still been huge, even though, yes, I started drinking again. The quickness of me realizing that, like, no, this is going where it's going, and being able to bring myself back into awareness is way faster than had I not done Enlifted. And had I not done Enlifted, I can tell you that I likely the first 6 month stint would have been a lot harder. That likely would have been 3 months. So, the first session that Mark and I did, there was really not a whole lot of diving into the past. It was goal setting. It was getting stuff on my calendar. It was organizing everything that was in my head onto paper. So it really helped because I was like, okay. And at that point it was like, I'm going to do the first quarter of this year sober. And then we were still working together when we started the second quarter. So it continued.
Interesting.
And then, and then I was doing coaching through the rest of the 6 months. So it definitely worked. And at that point, like, I was still saying 6 months, like I wasn't saying forever. So I believe that all of that was a step into, like, had I not gone back to drinking, the strength that I have right now may be different. And now, like, I went back I did what I said I was going to do. And now I'm like, okay, well, I've seen, half a year one way, half a year the other way, and I know which way I want. So I think it's, cool. I know it's been hugely instrumental in my
that's cool. I'm glad. Thanks for clearing up the timeline. That's I could see where that would be like such a wonderful experience to do hand in hand with the first 6 months and everything that's led you up till now. So that's cool. Thanks for sharing that. You know what, a couple other things before we start wrapping it up here. I really want to hear what your current refined, rediscovered definition of a couple words are, starting with balance, because balance is definitely a theme that's come up a few times. What is balance to you these days? What is balance, over the last 4 months? What does a balanced life for you look like?
Yeah. So I'll start with what balance was before, because I used to say that in order to be balanced, drinking was part of that for me. Like, oh yeah, I drink and I do this to be healthy. Just cutting that out when that tipped my scale. Now balanced is being connected with myself. Now balanced is being even. Now balanced is I meditate daily and I do 3 rounds of Wim Hof breathing every time I lay down and go to sleep. And I am dabbling in playing the ukulele. And I would have told you that I don't have any musical talent, which I mean, may still be true. And I'm I'm working on it.
Yeah.
And I just did a whole bunch of yard work and I was like, I love this. Like balance to me now is rediscovering who I am and recreating who I am. And I'm just so connected to like one, myself, nature, my own body. Yeah. So just like being so connected to like myself and the universe and everything.
It's beautiful. That's beautiful. And safe to say, do you have, I imagine you have certain routines throughout the day? Like, do you have a morning ritual, evening ritual, or do you like have more of a free form, just kind of follow your intuition? What does like your average day look like as far as that goes?
Well, when it's nice out, it's now pouring, so the rain did not succeed. However, when it's nice out, I'm usually up by like 5:30, 5:45. I go outside. And this is in the last like 2 months since it's been nice out. I go outside, I drink a cup of tea. I usually do a meditation outside. And then I'm very productive in the mornings. I've noticed this like definitely even like yesterday, like my husband's buzzing around doing stuff in the evening. And I was like, well, I like painted a bathroom wall at 7:00 this morning, so I'm chilling now. I'm gonna go to bed in an hour. So yeah, so I get up in the morning, and then I do work pretty much it's like an 8 to 4, so I work that, and then when I get off there, I do some kind of exercise. I do have a home gym, or I go for a walk or something like that, and then by that point, I mean, I usually am in bed by 8 reading. So, yeah. So there's sometimes like a TV show watching in there. But for the most part, I'm definitely more into like that active, not checked out feeling.
Yes.
I spent a lot of years checked out. So.
And I feel that I imagine there was quite a shift from, the ability to be an early riser as you are now, and that's your natural state, getting back to that, and chilling out in the evening and kind of letting things naturally ramp down and from a fairly, I guess relatively speaking, earlier bedtime versus what it was a few years ago, even a year and a half ago. It would have
been more likely for me to stay up till 5 in the morning than get up at 5 in the morning. So.
Oh, and could you imagine that now? No. Yeah.
No, to think back to like, and that's the thing, that ramp up that we're talking about, or that switch at the parties.
Yeah.
I was like the one driving the bus at that point, like staying up and.
Yeah. Come on, guys. Yeah. One more. Yeah. No, funny. Yeah. Funny mention. It's I'm very parallel to you as far as like, I'm very much an early riser. I love early mornings, especially in springtime when the sun's already starting to come out. Even in the wintertime, I'll get up early. So there's something about like the serenity that it grants you. And then you can I love the idea of just like conquering the morning, and you conquer your day. It gives you that energy to kind of propel you forward. So super cool. You're on board with that. It's funny. There's a lot of similarities. And aside from that, like, I want to come back to the word authentic. What does it feel like? What does it look like to you that what is it like the litmus test? Okay, I know I'm being my authentic self right now. How can you tell? And when something's a little bit out of alignment, or there's a little bit of distortion as far as, the way that you're presenting yourself starts coming out, how quickly are you to be able to reel that back in?
Okay, this is going to sound really woo-woo right now. When I feel like my third eye and my solar plexus are plugged into my heart.
Ooh, I love that.
That's like, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
woo version.
Yeah.
And it's leading with love. And it's when I
Mm.
can look at something that used to make me react and be like, okay, which happens so much now. When I can, like I was listening to, like, I never really got the whole like still listening to Disney music thing. And I've been listening to like Aladdin theme songs and, and like just being
Yes.
so, I'm definitely doing a whole lot of work on the inner child and
Yeah.
just being connected to her and like the things that she loved. And, I definitely got away from like, I talk about birds and nature and flowers. And like, I used to like pick up worms and go fishing and, like look at the birds and care. And, so just that, like, and I mean, I've always, even like through the drinking years, like I love sunflowers and like now I'm out there and I'm planting a garden and that's hopefully not drowning right now. And I planted a bunch of sunflowers that I'm going to transport. And like, I never, when I was drinking, I didn't do those kinds of things. So like
Right.
to know that I'm connected with myself is to do the things
Mm.
that I actually love doing.
Ooh, love it. So it feels like you never lost sight of that. You kind of
The
went the
alcohol is
wrong
more
direction
important.
on it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
No, that's a beautiful answer. I love that. I love that. And, just to wrap things up today, Kaitlynn, what would be something that you could say to somebody that's listening right now that may be sober curious or kind of just starting their journey? And, there's just a little bit, put yourself back in, that uncertainty of the beginning of sobriety. And what can you say? What would you say to somebody that's listening to you right now?
All you have is the moment you're in.
Ooh, beautiful. I love that. That's the mic drop moment. Well,
That's it.
yeah, that's it. Thank you so much, Kaitlynn, for coming on.
Thank
Wonderful
you.
stuff here.
That's great.
There was, I think there's some great stuff with with the family dynamics, navigating that was just some excellent advice and just real time, literally like you're talking about like last Sunday, right? Like very
Mhm.
recent in your
Yep.
journey, very relatable about, doing different, 30-day challenges, 6-month challenges, the self-development kind of in the background that's very much come to the forefront as part of your life now and how that's your foundation, rediscovering who you are. Such wonderful, just story and wonderful advice for everybody. So I can't thank you enough for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. This has been great.
Thank you.